Well, cruising solo is becoming more and more popular these days. I myself have taken over 30 cruises completely on my own, and I absolutely love it. During those cruises, I have actually discovered which cruise lines provide the best overall experience for solo cruisers, from the cost of the cruise to offering staterooms that are built just for solo cruisers. There are some lines who do it so right, while there are others who should be avoided completely. Hello everyone, my name is Zach. I am The Traveling Man, and in this video, I'm going to rank solo cruise experience by cruise line from worst to best. And I'll even tell you which cruise line I refuse to sail with as a solo cruiser. Let's jump right on into this list. Coming in at number 6 is Carnival Cruise Line. And Carnival Cruise Line is a brand that so many people know. It's probably the first cruise line that many of us ever sailed on. However, for solo cruisers, Carnival Cruise Line is just not it. First of all, they have 0 solo staterooms across their entire fleet. And by 0 solo staterooms, I mean staterooms that are designated solely for a solo guest. Some cruise lines offer this in the way of very small staterooms with just like a twin-size bed, while other cruise lines, which we'll also talk about this list, actually offer standard staterooms with a queen-size bed and a standard room like anyone would book on a cruise just for solo cruisers. But Carnival has none of these across their entire fleet. And I think this just shows a lack of commitment to providing a quality solo experience on their ships, especially their new builds. Now, I don't think there's any excuse these days for cruise lines to be building new cruise ships and not putting solo staterooms on board, because it is becoming so popular. We are seeing more and more people go on solo cruises. So why not make it more accessible for solo cruisers on your ships? Why not offer more of those solo staterooms and show them that they are welcome on board your ships? And you're not going to find that on Carnival. But on Carnival, you will find a more family-oriented cruise experience, which will mean more children on board. And I mention this because if you're solo, you may not have kids of your own, or perhaps you're leaving the kids at home. But at any rate, you're going for a quieter cruise experience, and you're going to find a lot of kids on Carnival. However, they will have solo meetups throughout the cruise. That is one thing that they do right for solo cruisers, but you can't brag on them too much in this regard because every cruise line on this list will have them. That's just something that cruise lines do now. Usually in the evening, just about every evening of the cruise, they'll organize a solo meetup that you can go. It's a good way to go and make friends. So if you're a solo cruiser watching this, I encourage you, if you want to make friends, may not be for you. Some people don't like to get out and be extroverted on their cruise. If you don't want to make new friends, that's fine. But if you do, know that most all cruise lines these days do offer solo meetups. So just look in the daily schedule to find out when those will be. So we can't give Carnival any extra points for doing that. Another negative of sailing with Carnival as a solo is that you will have to pay a solo supplement for any room on their ships. And this is because they don't have those solo staterooms. Because typically when cruise lines offer solo staterooms, they're not going to charge you a solo supplement. You might be saying, what is a solo supplement? Well, this is usually a 200% cost, meaning you're going to pay double if you're a solo cruiser, because the cruise lines are saying you're taking up one of our staterooms that we could have booked 2 people in, so you're going to have to pay double for it. So if you're going to sail solo, typically you're going to have to pay a solo supplement, which means you're going to have to pay 200%. However, lines that have solo rooms reduce or sometimes even completely do away the solo supplement for solo staterooms. But Carnival does not do this. I also think that Carnival lacks in entertainment and overall food quality. They also lack in service. So I just cannot recommend Carnival Cruise Line to solo cruisers. There are much better choices. And, well, we're going to talk about them. Let's jump right on over now to number 5, Royal Caribbean. And Royal Caribbean is a cruise line that overall does cruising right. In fact, I recently did a ranking of cruise lines that I've been on, ranked them from worst to best, and I'll link that video up here in a card or something so you can go back and watch that. But Royal Caribbean actually ranked number 2 on that list. But like Carnival, they are more family-oriented. You're going to find the big water slides. You're going to find the thrill attractions and the carousels. They're not as solo-friendly as some of the other lines on this list. And that's not to say that if they're family-oriented or family-friendly that they're not solo-friendly, but just in my experience, if they have a lot of stuff for families, that's the demographic that they're going after. So they're probably not going to have solo staterooms and reduced solo supplements. And like Carnival, you can expect more children on these cruises, especially on their new mega ships where they have like full water parks on there and all the different neighborhoods. Now, I recently sailed on Utopia of the Seas, their newest ship, one of the biggest ships in their fleet, and I really, really enjoyed it, but If you're, again, looking for a solo experience where you're going to find solo staterooms and be able to go for cheap and not just be surrounded by families the whole week, maybe if you're looking for a more laid back vibe, then you're not going to find that on Royal Caribbean, unfortunately. Like I said with Carnival, I think this shows a lack of commitment to providing a quality solo experience on their ships, especially with their new builds. So what that tells me is they might not be as welcoming to solo cruisers. That's not the demographic that they're going for. Coming in at number 4 is Princess Cruises, and I'll preface this with saying I've only been on one Princess cruise before, but I really enjoyed it. It's more of a premium cruise line. It's like, think about Celebrity Cruises. It's actually owned by the larger Carnival Corporation, which includes sister line Carnival Cruise Line, but it is going to be more of a laid back experience. It's going to be fewer kids on those ships. You're going to have really good food on Princess. You're going to have great ships. In fact, their new ships look amazing. I really want to go on Sun Princess and Star Princess. I don't have anything booked yet, and I haven't been on them yet, but I really want to because they just look like some of the best cruising you can do right now. And I went on the Diamond Princess. The Diamond Princess is one of the oldest ships in their fleet right now. A couple years ago now when I sold it, but I really enjoyed that ship. I really enjoy the value and the packages that they offer. They offer 2 levels of package, the highest being the Premier package, and it offers so much value. It included like a premium drink package. It included Wi-Fi for like 4 devices and included specialty dining. So many things were included. I think it was like $90 per day. Now I'm filming this in May of 2025. So if you're watching this in the future, I say it's $90 a day. Make sure you go and check the price because their cruise lines are constantly raising prices on these things. So you'll just have to check and see what the latest price is. But it was a really good value when I used it. But one of the things I was shocked to discover about Princess is they only recently began to offer solo staterooms, and they're only on their newest ship. I talk about Sun and Star Princess. That's the first time they've ever had solo staterooms on their ships. And get this, there are only four solo staterooms on each of those ships, which will make it impossible to book one. You're never going to be able to find one. I went and did like a little cursory search to see when I could maybe stay in a solo stateroom. Not with really intentions of staying in one. I just wanted to tell you for the purposes of this video. And there were like none available for the next 2 years. However, I did get lucky and run into just one. It was on a 7-day Caribbean cruise. And it was only $300 difference. That's all the savings you're going to get from booking that solo interior, which is a smaller interior with a bed just for one person. Princess can do a lot better when it comes to solo cruisers. I mean, they're still charging a solo supplement even on a solo cabin because you can't tell me that there's only $300 difference and that's going to make up that solo supplement. It's just not happening. They're still charging you the solo supplement. They're just making you feel like they're doing you some favor because they're giving you a solo stateroom, a solo interior. So basically you're taking a smaller stateroom for only $300 less. Don't do it. I will recommend Princess to you if you do want to pay a little bit more, since you're likely going to pay some solo supplement with them, but you want a laid back cruise experience with less children, a more relaxed vibe, great food quality, varied food options with all their specialty dining that they offer on those new ships, comfy bedding, and I'm talking about the best bedding I've ever had on a cruise ship before was on Diamond Princess. I still think about how great that bedding was. It was fantastic. And then a great value on extras, again, with those packages that include drinks, Wi-Fi, etc. If you're into those things, you might want to check out Princess. But they're not making it any higher than number 4 on my list of best solo cruise experiences. Now coming in at number 3 is Celebrity Cruises. And I have so many conflicting thoughts on this one. I love Celebrity. You know, I talked about that video I did recently ranking the cruise lines. I ranked Celebrity as my number 1 cruise line. And they have been for so long. I've loved Celebrity Cruises for about 4 years when I first sold on them. They've been my favorite. Their newest ships, the Edge class of ships, are the best ships at sea. They're so beautiful. They carry a modern elegance to them. And I would sell them anywhere in the world. And in fact, I have. From the Mediterranean to Australia to the Caribbean. I love the Edge class. And I'm going to be doing more of the Edge class later this year. So if you're interested in that, make sure you subscribe and go along with me on that adventure. And Celebrity does actually offer solo staterooms on their ships. In fact, some of their older ships, I think in the Solstice class, there may be 1 or 2 interior solo staterooms on those. Just a select number. I think maybe like Silhouette and maybe Reflection if I'm not mistaken. But the new ships, the Edge series ships, there are 16 solo staterooms on the Edge, on the Apex, on the Beyond, and on Celebrity Ascent. And Celebrity Excel, which will be coming in November, will have double that amount. They'll have 32 solo staterooms. And this really highlights where Celebrity's headed in the future with solo cruisers. They're adding space for solo cruisers on their ships. And these aren't just like interior solo rooms. You'll see that a lot on a lot of cruise lines. They'll just offer you like a little, almost like a closet. 99 square feet is one of the smallest I've stayed in that was a solo stateroom. They're offering a veranda stateroom. So it's actually a balcony stateroom. Now it's smaller than the standard balconies, but still you're going to get to stay in a balcony. But recent terrible solo pricing policies, which included over 300% solo supplement. I was reading the other day, someone found a 556% solo supplement, meaning they were charging people 5 times as much as they should for being solo, which is just crazy to charge them like 2.5 times what they would charge a couple. Celebrity started doing that probably a little over a year ago, and I made a video about it. There was a public outcry about it. They said they reversed that policy, but you got to watch them because sometimes they'll still throw out a greater than 200% solo supplement out there. I've also noticed that they've begun restricting solo cruisers from lower cost categories on most of their ships and most of their cruises. And what I mean by this is, I'm a solo cruiser. I go in and put on the booking, there's going to be one person in the room. Well, Celebrity on most of the cruises that I found will not show me interior or ocean view categories, which would be the cheapest I could book, even at a 200% solo supplement. Instead, they would only show me the veranda and the suite price, which is astronomical. And I'm not paying that. I mean, who can really afford that as a solo cruiser to be paying for the retreat at, over $10,000 basically on most of these cruises? But they're really restricting us to those higher end categories, which tells me that they might not be as fond of solo cruisers, but it's a mixed message. See, they're adding more solo staterooms, and then at the same time, they have terrible solo pricing policies. And even the solo staterooms that they do have, which is the Solo Infinite Veranda, have a solo supplement associated now. They're no longer the cheapest category on most of their cruises. I used to always book in the Solo Infinite Veranda because that was always the cheapest for me as a solo cruiser. But now I'm finding that sometimes if I can find an interior stateroom, that's going to be cheaper than those Infinite Veranda staterooms. So really, it's just so inconsistent over there with Celebrity with their pricing and how they're treating their solo cruisers. But I will say, I will recommend Celebrity to you if you're looking for a laid-back experience. I mean, probably one of the best laid-back cruising experiences that you can find with very few children. In fact, I've been on Celebrity cruises that had like 1 or 2 children at most, which was, to me, awesome. But beautiful ships, some of the best ships at sea, the best food and service, in my experience, that you're going to find at sea, and great entertainment. But that's about it. Those are the highlights of Celebrity. I don't like where they're headed in pricing out solo cruisers. And again, it tells me that they might not want us on their ship. So I'm going to be very curious to see in the future how their pricing policies for solo cruisers might change. Coming in at number 2, the second best cruise line, in my opinion and in my experience for solo cruisers, is Virgin. And that's because Virgin, on each of their ships, which is soon to be 4 in the fleet, features more than 40 solo staterooms. This is more than anyone we've seen so far on this list. And these staterooms are only inside an ocean view, and there's only, I think, about 4 ocean views on each of the ships. But this tells me that Virgin is looking out for the solo cruiser. They recognized when they started building their ships that there was a demand from solo cruisers, and they went with it. They welcomed us onto their ships, and I appreciate that. And in fact, not only do they have more than 40 solo staterooms on their ships, but there are no solo supplements associated with these solo staterooms, making Virgin voyages very, very affordable for solo cruisers, especially when you compare them to many of the other cruise lines that we've talked about so far. And I'm going to recommend Virgin Voyages to you if you want an adults-only experience, because no kids are allowed on Virgin. No one, I think, under the age of 18 is allowed on Virgin Voyages. They have great food. In fact, they've sort of made food different on their ship, so there's not any main dining rooms. There's just restaurants that you can go to. And all the food's included. They're not going to try to upcharge you for dining on their cruises like most cruise lines do now. Their ships also have more lively entertainment than many of the other cruise lines. They do have a lot of parties, so if you like to go to parties, Virgin offers a lot of that. But you can still find quiet places to relax around their ships. And I'll say, try Virgin if you want something different. Maybe if you're like me, when I sold Virgin, I'd been on 30-something cruises, and I said, you know what? I feel like I've done it all. I feel like I've had all the cruise ship experiences at this point. I want to do something different. And Virgin is definitely out there to be different. I already mentioned the dining and how that was different. The entertainment's different. The ships are just different. They're laid out different. It's just a really different cruise experience. And if you're a solo cruiser looking for a great value, you're not going to have to pay a solo supplement, and you're going to have a good time, make sure you check out Virgin Voyages. So we're almost to the number 1 spot, but before we get there, I do want to mention a few cruise lines that you won't see on this list and tell you a little bit about why that is. The first of which is MSC Cruises. Now, I have sailed with MSC before, but I had an awful awful experience on that cruise. I sailed on the MSC Divina, and I have sworn them off. I've said I will not sail with them again, but I cannot fairly assess how they are with solo cruisers. I only went on a 3-day cruise, so I don't think it's fair to put them in this list because I have a very limited experience with them when it comes to solo cruising. But what I do know is that only a few of their ships have solo cabins. Just proceed with caution here because I didn't have a great experience. A lot of people have told me recently that I should try them again, and I am thinking about it. Holland America is another one that's missing on this list, and I do know that they offer solo cabins on their ships. Unfortunately, I just haven't sailed with them yet. They are on my list for 2026. It's something I really want to do. I'm going to prioritize them, I promise, because that's another one that a lot of you have told me. You have to sail with them, and I really want to try them. So that's going to happen in 2026, so stay tuned for that. And then lastly, Disney. You're likely never, ever, ever going to see me on a Disney ship. I'm never going to be creating content from a Disney ship. There are many reasons for this, but ultimately, Disney just isn't for me. It doesn't do it for me. It's not anything that I think I would enjoy or anything I would want to sail with. I'm sorry, I know that a lot of people like Disney, and if that's for you, that's fine. However, I will tell you that Disney does not offer any solo cabins on any of their ships. And since they cater to families, I can't imagine it would be an ideal cruise line for solo cruisers. You know, it's a lot of stuff for the kids, a lot of stuff for the family. So I don't even know how it would be if I was interested in cruising solo on Disney. So not something you're going to see me do, though. All right, so the number one spot, in my opinion, the best cruise line for solo cruisers is going to be Norwegian Cruise Line. Not only are their new ships, the Prima, the Viva, the Aqua, some of the best ships at sea. They're so beautiful. I just sailed on Aqua's maiden voyage, the transatlantic cruise. It was so amazing. But all the ships in the Norwegian fleet feature solo staterooms. This is something new that Norwegian did just a few years ago. They made a commitment to solo cruisers. We are going to designate standard staterooms in all categories, interior, ocean view, and balcony, just for solo cruisers. And these aren't smaller staterooms. These are the actual size staterooms that anyone else would be sailing in, but they only offer them for solo cruisers. And I think that's fantastic. That means you're going to be able to book these rooms for little to no solo supplement, which in my opinion and in my experience makes Norwegian the best value for solo cruisers. And in addition to a great price, most bookings are going to come with their More at Sea promotion, and this includes a drink package. It includes specialty dining credits. It includes Wi-Fi minutes. It includes shore excursions credit. That's all included in the fare, which is already a great value. So I really don't think you can beat Norwegian when it comes to value for solo cruisers. And in addition to all that, if the value and the ships and the solo staterooms weren't enough, 10 Norwegian Cruise Line ships actually have a studio lounge. This lounge is exclusive to solo guests, and this features things like coffee and tea and water and light refreshments, but it's a great place to meet other solo cruisers. I've been able to go a few times now to the solo lounge when I've been on some of their ships, and I've met people that I normally wouldn't meet because I normally don't go to the meetups and stuff, but you walk in there to get tea or coffee or something, or a bite to eat, or just want to sit and read. I mean, many of these lounges are big enough. They've got sofas and places to sit in there. I just go in there and sit and read. And I'm going to recommend Norwegian for those of you who want a great value. For those of you who are looking for a wide selection of specialty dining options, because there are so many specialty dining options, especially on the newer ships from Norwegian. They also have good food. I've really enjoyed Norwegian food just about on every ship I've been on with them. I've had really good experience with food and some unique itineraries, because Norwegian is the only cruise line right now, the only mainstream cruise line, I should say, that's sailing to Africa. So they have some really good itineraries. So make sure you go and check them out and get a great price on your solo cruise. So that's it. That's my ranking of cruise lines by the solo cruise experience that they offer. And I hope that you did find this ranking informative, and maybe it'll help you plan your next solo adventure. I also encourage you to leave me a comment down below. What do you think about my ranking? What do you think about this list? Am I missing someone? What's this been like in your experience? I'm really curious to know. I invite you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like I said, I'm consistently a solo cruiser, and I have many more tips and tricks to share with my solo cruisers in upcoming videos. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next adventure.